Welcome to Dragon Age Deep Dive, where I consume all official Dragon Age content and contextualize it so that it makes sense to you and my brain. In our last video, we covered The Stolen Throne by David Gaider, which came out in 2009, and up next we have The Calling, also by David Gaider, which also came out the same year, 2009. This is a continuation of that same storyline from The Stolen Throne, so if you haven't seen that video, I would recommend you watch that one first. The Calling starts off in the year of the Dragon Age, 910 to 911. At the end of The Stolen Throne, which is something I didn't mention in the previous video, there's a brief moment at the end where Logain sees off in the distance a dragon flying in the sky, which they've been kind of unseen for a really long time. And so him seeing that dragon marks the start of the Dragon Age. Between the end of the Stolen Throne and the beginning of the Calling, Merrick has been king of Ferelden for 11 years. His wife and queen, Rowan, died because of an illness. They did have a son named Kaelin, and Logain is still around. The story starts in the Ferelden throne room with Orlesian Grey Wardens visiting King Merrick. Grey Wardens are a group of people all over Thedas who have dedicated their lives to stopping blights. And blights are these world-ending events where Darkspawn awaken an old god, which brings this monstrosity to the surface and kind of covers the world in darkness and ruin. It's been a long time since the last blight, and so Grey Wardens are kind of looked down upon and kind of seen as foolish for still thinking that they're needed and relevant. They're not really seen as the heroes anymore. So back to the Ferelden throne room, we have a group of people who are both Orlesian and Grey Wardens, which doesn't do them any favors as they ask King Merrick for help in going back into the deep roads to locate a Grey Warden who's been kidnapped by Darkspawn, who just conveniently happens to know the locations of the old gods. So they're on this mission, which is really important because if this information of the location of the old gods gets leaked, it will ensure a blight is going to happen. That was a mouthful. Logain is also in the throne room, and of course he is super untrusting. I think with the horrors that he experienced in the last book, this one he's very shut off to it. He doesn't want to help. He would rather ignore any potential issues and just claim that it's all false. There is this moment that we go back to the Wild Witch from the Stolen Throne. Remember when she told Merrick that she would help them if he kept a promise? We're kind of jumping back to that conversation. We still don't know what the promise is. However, we learn that the witch has told Merrick two important things. One, that she warns Merrick that the closer Merrick keeps Logain to him, the more Logain will betray him, and the worse and worse it'll get. The second thing is she tells him that a blight will happen, but Merrick won't live to see it. So those are two things to keep in mind, as also that promise that we still don't know about. With the Wild Witch's words in Merrick's head, he secretly agrees to join the Grey Wardens, leaving his son and Logain behind. We then jump to the kidnapped Grey Warden Bragan, who is now in a Darkspawn cell. We meet a talking Darkspawn, which is unheard of, who calls itself the Architect. Bragan makes an attempt to break free from the cell, but with all the darkness and Darkspawn around every single corner, he quickly becomes outnumbered and is captured once again. Before venturing into the deep roads, the Grey Wardens and Merrick make a pit stop at the Tower of Mages in Lake Calenhad to receive some gifts from Enchanter Ramil. Enchanter Ramil is an Orlesian mage, but he's the first enchanter of this tower in Ferelden. And he gifts everyone onyx brooches, which is meant to protect them from being sensed by the Darkspawn when they're in the deep roads. And there's a newer Grey Warden whose name is Duncan. He happens to sneak off during this gifting ceremony, and he breaks into Enchanter Ramil's room, and he finds this hidden dagger which he pockets. The Grey Wardens and Merrick, which I'll now refer to as the team, make it to the Deep Roads doors that Merrick had once been in 14 years ago with Logain, Rowan, and Catriel. They decide to camp for the night outside, and we get some team bonding in. There are 7 Grey Wardens in this group. We've got Genevieve, who is the commander. She's a hard ass and really intense, but she loves being a Grey Warden. That's like her whole identity, and she's good. She's a warrior. We've got Kel, who is a really quiet guy, keeps to himself, really big though and scary. He's got a really good sense for darkspawn. He's able to sense them better than the others. He also has a dog named Hafter, who is also really good at hunting darkspawn. Then there's Utha, a dwarf who's had her tongue cut out, so she signs to communicate, which everyone else is able to communicate back with her, except for Merrick. There's Nicholas and Julian, who are this pair that tend to stay close to themselves. Julian is a bit more quiet and reserved, and Nicholas is the more talkative one and is also quick to anger. There's Duncan, as previously mentioned, who's a newer Grey Warden. He used to be a thief in the Orlesian streets. And then there's Fiona, who's an elven mage who seems to be holding a grudge against Merrick. She's not a fan that he has joined the group. During this camping night, Merrick discovers that the impetus for this quest came from a dream that Genevieve had. The kidnapped Grey Warden is Genevieve's brother, so knowing that this quest started from a dream and that it's someone that she's related to has Merrick questioning whether he's made the right choice in helping them, but in the end he decides to stay. The next morning, they head into the deep roads. It looks exactly like Merrick remembers it, except there's more darkspawn corruption that has moved closer to the surface. They set up camp a little later on. They do some further bonding. King Merrick passes around a flask of dwarven ale that was gifted to him by the King of Orzammar, which is the underground dwarven city. This was gifted to him by King Edrin Idukin. Duncan and Genevieve have a secret conversation off to the side, and Genevieve tells Duncan that if things go bad, Duncan needs to take Merrick out of here and make sure that he survives. However, she also says if Merrick knows too much, we don't know what too much is, but if he knows too much, Duncan has to kill Merrick. And Duncan's like, oh. Jumping back to Bragan, he discovers that he is turning into a darkspawn. The architect reveals that only Bragan and the architect are the ones that are able to resist the old gods' calls. We learn that as darkspawn, there is a calling from the old gods that is like an incessant humming that occurs in your ears and kind of takes over all your senses. The architect wants to stop the blights by making all humans turn into Grey Wardens so that the darkspawn stop going after humans. This would cause a massive death around the humans because in order to become Grey Wardens, you have to ingest darkspawn blood, and not many people survive that. So it'd be a massive risk to the human population. The architect presents a test to Bragan by showing him a way out, but the architect is able to convince Bragan to stay and help him with his plans to stop the blights, to stop the cycle of darkspawn coming and trying to take over the world. We also learn that Bragan never wanted to become a Grey Warden. He only became one because his sister Genevieve really wanted to become one, and she would only be accepted if he also joined. And he ended up being really good at it, so he became the commander of the Grey Wardens, which caused a lot of jealousy on Genevieve's side, so there's a little bit of sibling rivalry happening there. Jumping back to the team in the tunnels, they are now trying to avoid a bunch of darkspawn groups from different areas. So they're sprinting back and forth, running through tunnels. Eventually they have to face one group of darkspawn, which leads to a big fight and a lot of injuries. They don't have much time to rest because more darkspawn are on the way, and they run into this tunnel, which ends up being a dragon's den. So there's a massive dragon fight, which is awesome and scary. It's not looking good. Everyone's getting beat up. Duncan has this crazy idea after the fighting has gone on for a while. He takes his daggers and runs up the spine of the dragon to stick his daggers into the dragon's head, which causes the dragon a lot of pain. He gets flung off the dragon and is almost killed by the dragon. Julian steps in to save him, but that ends up with Julian being killed by the dragon instead. The team is able to rally and defeat the dragon after that, but it ends with a lot of injuries and now a dead Grey Warden, which Nicholas is super upset by because it was Julian and Nicholas who were the pair. Nicholas blames Duncan for Julian's death, and being upset, Duncan runs off into the caves on his own. Fiona and Merrick go on a search to find Duncan, and luckily they find him pretty quickly. In this bonding moment, we discover how and why Duncan became a Grey Warden. It turns out that he was being a thief in Orlesian. He was trying to steal from someone. That someone ended up being Genevieve's fiance. In this massive misunderstanding of thievery and this kind of tussle that happens, Duncan ends up accidentally killing Genevieve's fiance. Duncan gets arrested and is going to be put to death, but Genevieve steps in and conscripts him for the Grey Wardens. When Merrick, Fiona, and Duncan return from the caves, they happen upon a big disagreement happening between the group of what the next step should be. Duncan steps up and votes for Genevieve's side and that they stick with the course and follow her lead. They also put Julian's body in a little river that they find to give him the best send-off that they can. And back to Bragan, who is now fully a darkspawn. In his last conversation with the architect, the calling of the old gods overwhelmed him so much that he ended up begging the architect to turn him into a darkspawn. But Bragan doesn't remember that. He's just woken up to him becoming the darkspawn. His skin is like super tight and leathery, and it's really gross and itchy and cold, and it's a horrible description. Now that the architect trusts Bragan, he reveals more of his plans. He wants to kill the old gods to fully stop the cycle of the blights. It also turns out that the architect knows that there are Grey Wardens searching for Bragan. Coming back to the team, they make their way through the tunnels and finally find a place that Merrick recognizes again. It is Orton Tig. That's the place where all the spiders were in the Stolen Throne. Luckily, there are no spiders this time around. Kel can sense Bragan's smell, but can also smell darkspawn around, which makes sense. The scent leads them into this ruined dwarven palace, which ends up being haunted by a demon. The demon wakes up as they enter and fully possesses Fiona and knocks everyone out. Merrick finds himself in a dream state back in Ferelden with Catriel in his bed, and he's like, what the hell is happening? And he knows something is off. He can sense something is off. Which allows him to free himself from this dream. And he discovers that he's in the Fade. And Catriel, though she was in his dream, she also appears in the Fade. She seems to be stuck in the Fade. And she offers to help him free the others from being in the Fade as well. He first finds Duncan, who is in Orlesian with his parents in this dream state. It's a very big, happy family, so it's really sad when Merrick has to break the news that this isn't real. And then Merrick and Duncan go to find Kel, who's with the Avars, which are a group of people that live in the Frostback Mountains, and we discover that he had a family at some point. The three of them next find Utha, who is able to fully speak, and she's with her dwarven family, and they're all having a nice, lovely time. They break the news to Utha that this isn't real, and she makes this comment about how she's going to avenge her family. So that potentially has something to do with why she became a Grey Warden. And next we find Nicholas, who is in this log cabin, and within this dream, Nicholas is with Julian, and it's just this nice little, those two living on their own. That's when we discover that they've been in like a secret relationship this whole time, which is very obvious to a lot of people. Obviously the Grey Wardens were aware of it. Merrick wasn't, so when we read from his perspective, he's like, oh, two close friends, and it's like, oh no, they're obviously in love. So Merrick discovers this and he's like, oh, and Nicholas asks everyone to just leave him. Don't make him come. He wants to stay in this dream with Julian. So they agree to that. It's very sad. They say goodbye, but they leave him in the Fade. And finally, they all go to get Genevieve. Duncan has to do this on his own, and he comes face to face with the man he killed, Genevieve's fiance. We also kind of start to discover Genevieve's inner feelings and emotions about all this as Duncan starts to try to bring Genevieve more to reality. She gets really angry. She hates Duncan, completely despises him, and hates him even more for breaking her out of this dream state. It's very obvious that she harbors a lot of rage towards Duncan, and it makes him question her true intentions with him. And then there's one more person to get, which is Fiona, who is fully possessed by the demon itself. We come into Fiona's dream, which reveals her past of being a servant to an Orlesian noble who treated her really poorly. It was a lot of torture. So that's the scene we come across in this moment. they're able to break free and defeat the demon, which then wakes all of them up back in the dwarven ruins. So all of them wake up except for Nicholas, who has hopefully had a happy ending in this dream state. We'll never know, but I hope for the best. There was also this moment before they woke up of Catriel begging Merrick to stay one more time and not to leave, to stay with her. And it's kind of this indication of everything that's haunting Merrick, of Catriel's betrayal and him killing her in the Stolen Throne, and how she's still there. Her presence is still there, and he has this chance to, I don't know, be with her maybe, but he says no. But it's something that haunts him and that kind of stays with him for a long time. So after all this, Genevieve feels even more pressure to find Bragan. She's pushing. Kel at some point goes, "Yo, lady, you gotta slow down. We can't do this. It's getting too risky at the rate that they're going." So they pause for a little bit, and there's this moment of reveal where it turns out that Genevieve, Kel, and Uther have had the Darkspawn taint that they've ingested because they're Grey Wardens is spreading through them quite rapidly. So they've got all these blackened veins. Fiona and Duncan seem to be in the clear. They are the newer Grey Wardens, so they seem to be okay at the moment, but it's a very harrowing moment for all of them. The team takes some time to rest, and Fiona and Merrick step off to have their own private conversation to kind of share more of their backstories and get a better understanding of each other. Then they get a better understanding of each other. They sleep together. Classic. Everyone wakes up to discover that Genevieve has disappeared. She's taken off without the rest of the pack. They all get their things together and go and try to find her before she can do anything reckless. This leads them to an area where they get surrounded by Darkspawn, and it ends up being a big, massive battle, scarier than the dragon one. It's not looking promising. Everyone's getting stabbed. Everyone's heads are smacking. There's an ogre that comes in and flings everyone about, but then a giant white light takes over the room, and then everything goes dark. The whole team was captured by Darkspawn, and they wake up in a cell, similar to the one that Bragan woke up in. So it's Uther, Kel, Hafter, Fiona, Merrick, and Duncan, all shackled in this cell. The architect, Genevieve, and Bragan show up. Genevieve is fully a Darkspawn now, and she tells them about the architect's plans to stop the blights. This is when everyone kind of realizes that the Darkspawn taint that they ingest for the joining to become a Grey Warden is what turns them into a Darkspawn. And that's why the Grey Wardens invented the calling, was to stop this process before you turn into a Darkspawn. But because the calling is just entering the deep roads, who's to say you don't turn into a Darkspawn anyway? Genevieve then shares the architect's plans of turning them all into Darkspawn like her and Bragan now are. Uther agrees immediately. Kel asks for some time to think it over with the others before they make their decision. This gives Duncan enough time for all of them to break out and escape. Duncan, Fiona, Merrick, Kel, and Hafter make their break for it and run through the tunnels trying to evade Darkspawn as much as they can. There comes one moment where Kel and Hafter sacrifice themselves so that Duncan, Fiona, and Merrick can make it out safely, which they are able to successfully do. It's very sad. But they're able to make it. They find their way through the tunnels, conveniently near Lake Calenhad. And as they make their way out, they see that Enchanter Ramil is there approaching them. We quickly discover that Enchanter Ramil has been working with the architect this whole time, for some reason. The three are captured and taken to the Tower of Mages, where the architect, Bragan, Genevieve, and Uther are already there waiting. And this is the moment where everything gets revealed. It turns out the onyx brooches that Ramil had given everyone do hide them from the Darkspawn, but they don't hide them from the architect. And these brooches also make the taint spread faster through all of their bodies, making them become Darkspawn faster, which explains why Genevieve, Uther, and Kel had further development of this Darkspawn spreading through them. Genevieve learns the architect's full plans, which is to turn everyone into Grey Wardens by making them do the joining. This kept secret greatly upsets Genevieve, and she turns on Bragan and goes to attack him. And the architect then kills Genevieve with this inky, venom-like substance that eats away at her until she's nothing. This upsets Bragan, so then he goes to attack the architect, and then that gets interrupted by Ramil because he loves attention, and then that gets interrupted by Merrick because the three of them have broken out of their shackles and are ready to fight. And then a random mage walks in and says Logain is coming with 3 ships, and Ramil is panicking. A big battle of chaos breaks out. Ramil is using that inky black magic on people. Duncan discovers that the dagger that he stole from Ramil repels this inky black venom, and he uses it to stab Ramil. And then Logain walks in and sees an absolute mess. He reveals that he's here because he had heard that the Orlesians had taken over the tower 2 days ago, and we all know how Logain feels about Orlesians. The architect and Utha fled during the chaos of battle, so no one knows where they went. They've completely disappeared. Bragan is still there, and he just begs to be killed. He's over it, and that is obliged. We've now made it to the epilogue. Merrick is back on the throne, and Duncan and Fiona are secretly visiting him while Logain is away. We discover Fiona's darkspawn taint has completely disappeared, making her the first Grey Warden who will not have to go through the calling. She's also been tasked to do research at Weissopt, which is a Grey Warden post, to locate the architect and figure out what his plans are and how to stop him. We then discover Fiona has a child who is also Merrick's child. So this child is half elf, half human, and she asks Merrick to make sure that he is raised like a human, but away from the court. She doesn't want him in all this royal mess. Duncan promises to watch over the child from time to time as well, just to make sure that he has a good upbringing. This is just the most lovely reveal, which we will get to later down the line because it's really important and really exciting. But just know, if you've played Dragon Age Origins, this is, like, for me, it was the most exciting reveal I'd ever read, where I was like, that is amazing. Like, there's an answer to something that you would never know you needed. But yeah, so that's really exciting. Stay tuned for that. That's going to be really, really fun. But yes, so Merrick has this child who's a half-elf that is living somewhere else. And that's how the calling ends. We've learned more about Grey Wardens and Darkspawn. The architect is still out there, and a potential blight is coming. Merrick has survived the deep roads once again, and he has even more weight on his shoulders. And this is the last book that covers Merrick's journey, but don't worry because there are plenty of characters that will be making reappearances. And that's all for this video. The next video isn't going to be about a novel, it'll be about some comics, which will be fun, and we'll do something completely different when we talk about that, which will be exciting. So thank you for joining. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, just to stay tuned with everything else, and I'll see you again next month.
I give my life to heed the call. Keep the land safe for all. No darkspawn shall leave my path. No blight shall be allowed to pass. A Grey Warden has one duty: stop the blights to keep the peace. With darkspawn blood inside our veins, though they forget we do remain. It's what I'm dreading. The taint is spreading, as though I'm falling. I hear the calling. I give my life to heed the call. Keep the land safe for all. No darkspawn shall leave my path. No blight shall be allowed to pass.